Howdy. It's good to see you again. If this is your first time, welcome. I'm not sure what I want to talk about right now, but I just kind of felt inspired to say something to the camera. I'm still getting used to doing this. I haven't been doing it very long, and I can't say that I'm that good at it, but it's worth a shot anyways. I've been kind of like meditating for a while, but it's been a very passive meditation. All sorts of thoughts and beliefs and feelings are coming up. It's been a strange and interesting journey. I'm kind of trying to figure out like what this whole life thing is about. It can be kind of confounding sometimes, especially when I try to intellectualize it. Other times it seems so simple, especially when my mind is clear. And by that I mean relatively empty. So, one of the things that I'm working on is trying to clear out belief systems. I guess I prefer not to believe anything that I can't prove, and I can't really prove very much of anything. For the most part, I think I know about one thing, and that is that I exist. But if I have to think that I exist, I'm not sure if I actually exist. But I'm pretty sure I do, because I can think and I can observe myself thinking, but I could also not think and just be. I think there is an important distinction between thinking to be and being to think, if that makes any sense. So if one can be and one has thoughts, hmm, yeah, I'm confusing myself a little bit, but it's kind of fun. It's not an unenjoyable process to confuse oneself, at least for me. I tend to do it quite frequently. I get confused about thoughts racing through my mind, oftentimes because I can't really pin down the thoughts in the first place. So I just see glimpses of things flowing through my mind, and sometimes they make partial sense, sometimes they make complete sense, and sometimes they make no sense whatsoever. Anyways, yeah, this whole schizophrenia thing, it doesn't get to me so much anymore. I mean, when I have active voices and intrusive thoughts, it's kind of bothersome, I must say. It can be very uncomfortable, especially when I'm highly sensitized to the electrical sensations in my brain, or when my body is really terribly feeling like it's being, I don't know, shocked or manhandled, or when energy is flowing too powerfully through me. You know, there's something I did once that was not the brightest of ideas. Basically, I had the idea that if I were to disconnect from my stream of thought, my thoughts would eventually slow down. And this would eventually, in time, and I was thinking a pretty short time, create a basis, a foundation of peace within me. That my mind would become clear because I was no longer adding momentum to the thoughts in my head. This was based upon an assumption that thoughts gained and decreased in momentum dependent upon how one was focused on them. I'm not so sure that this is a correct assumption at this point in time. Because when I disconnected from my thoughts, that's when energy started rushing in to my energy centers in a very extreme way. The thoughts in my mind started to race. There were oftentimes cascading thought sequences that would interact with each other and play off of each other. And it was a very wild experience. This lasted for a long time. It was actually what precursed the psychotic break for me. It lasted for about a year and 9 months in total, during which time I was in a completely altered state of consciousness. My senses were heightened. I was much more alert. I felt energy powerfully flowing through my body. I was doing a lot of energy work at the time. It was just kind of a natural thing to do. Sometimes I'd find myself spontaneously breaking out into dance and song, speaking in tongues, all sorts of them. And I still have no idea what the tongues I was speaking are or were, or if they actually had any intelligence behind them. It really seemed like it, and it felt like I was being controlled and manipulated by an outside force. This outside force was incredibly aggressive, yet at the same time calm in demeanor. It didn't really speak very much. Sometimes it would speak through me. This is one of the reasons why I've thought that schizophrenia may be a spiritual disease. But at this point in time, I'm not so sure. It seems that I truly could have split my mind, and that there were disparate parts acting upon each other, and I, as the conscious being within the system that is the mind and the body and the energies, was experiencing all of this simultaneously. It was one of the most bizarre and painful experiences of my life. But there were instances and periods when I would experience deep love, joy, bliss, and an incredible sense of peace. My mind would often be completely clear, devoid of all thoughts, while energy was flowing through my body. The energy was quite comfortable sometimes, and even began to feel similar to what I would describe as ecstasy. I never achieved ecstasy. Prior to that, things got a little bit messed up. Interestingly, before my psychotic break, I was in one of the most peaceful and open states I'd ever been in. I was a very willing participant in my own life and in the lives of others. This may sound like a very bizarre story, and it is. But it's all real. At least as real as I experienced it. There are parts of that experience that I miss, especially the joy and the peace. Another interesting component to what I was going through prior to the break was that I had lost all conception of what was real and what was not real. This didn't mean that I was acting illogically and irrationally, but it did mean that I questioned everything, recognizing that I didn't have any of the answers that I thought I did at one point in time. To this day, I still don't have any answers. Like I said, there's only one thing that I think I figured out. And that was through the experience, and that is that I exist. I seem to have a mind, I seem to have a body, I seem to have emotions, and they're all connected in some way or another, but I'm not sure how they're connected. Some say that there are energy bodies, some say that there are mental bodies, some say that there is a bliss body, that once you tap into it, allows you to experience never-ending and incredible states of bliss and ecstasy. Sounds nice and everything, but I don't think I need that. Could be fun, but really something that I want to do is work in the world. I don't have to be making money, but I do want to work with others, and I do want to share the knowledge that I have gained, even if it's as basic as I know one thing, and that is that I exist, and it's possible that you exist too. People would probably look at me a little bit funny if I told them, I'm not sure you exist, but I think you do, so maybe you do. One of the things that's happened to me since the psychotic break is that I've kind of lost the ability to feel others. I used to be highly empathic, but I was very focused on the negative aspects of what I felt in others. I would feel their emotions and their thoughts and their words very powerfully, and it could pierce me right to my core. In some ways, I'm glad that I don't feel in this sort of way anymore, because it really truly was a very painful experience, and it caused a lot of trauma for me as the years went by. As I began to learn how to change my own mind and my own mental and emotional behaviors, I became more receptive to what others were doing in a way. It's as if all my buttons were being pressed at once. This was part of the experience I had for that year and 9 months prior to the psychotic break. It was like having all of your buttons exposed and allowing every little movement, every little action in life to press one of them. Oftentimes there were sequences that were pressed that would cause something to kind of blow up or explode within me in an energetic way. It was really a very bizarre experience. I still feel energy flowing through my body, and it can be very painful. It doesn't feel the same as the energy that I used to feel. There was a magnetism to the energy that I used to feel, where I could move my arms and my hands and my legs and my torso and my head, and I could kind of connect myself with a beam of energy to the things around me, draw myself in, push myself away. I never got to the point where I could actually move objects with my hands and my mind without actually touching them, but it sure felt like I was getting close. But it seemed like something was always stopping me from being able to actually cross the line and be able to do that. Once again, it kind of seems as if there may have been another form of consciousness interacting with me, but I don't know this for sure. It also makes some sense to me that this is all a manifestation of my mind, and that certain parts of my mind were effectively acting out, having become too imbalanced and having grown too large. They decided to start to take control over the other aspects of my mind and my consciousness. I didn't allow this to happen, and I won't allow this to happen. But sometimes these other forms of consciousness, or what I'm deeming these other forms of consciousness, still try to take control, and I feel like a puppet on a string, or a marionette. It can be a very frightening experience to start to lose control over one's own body while something else is actively trying to control it. To simply lose control of one's own body isn't that big of a deal. It's happened before, although when it happens in sleep paralysis, which I used to get pretty often, it's a very uncomfortable situation. You're trying to move, you're stuck within your body, you're conscious and awake, but your body is asleep. And oftentimes it feels like, at least for me, I'm being pressed down on the bed by something else. sometimes even being choked. Anyhow, I thought I'd share some of that. It's a little bit of interesting information about me and my experiences. The depths and the details of this information goes far beyond what I've discussed and described today. But I hope it gives you some insight into the kinds of things somebody dealing with schizophrenia or other similar disorders may go through. I think I'm going to go back to meditating for a little while. It felt pretty good. It's the first time in a long while that it actually felt pretty good. And I can just imagine how good it'll feel when I continue to kind of purify myself in energies and thoughts and body and mind. It's not that purity is better than dirtiness, but there is a simplicity and an elegance to something that is more pure. With that greater simplicity, it seems that things become a lot more clear, that one can see and observe life without distortion. And I would very much like that. Kind of tired of these distorted perspectives of life. I'd like to know life for what it is, at least as it appears through this body, through these eyes, through these ears, and through this sensory system. I might get there one day. I'm not sure if I will. I'm not really trying too hard to get there. But I think it's important that I've recognized that I don't know very much. I also think it's important that I've recognized that I was basing so much of my behavior, my choices and actions, based upon beliefs that were presumed to be true or that I put faith into, but that weren't necessarily true or valid. When a person comes to understand that they have a lot of beliefs that are kind of obscuring their ability to really see what reality is as it is, that can be a very powerful step forward towards clearing out some of those belief systems and becoming cleaner of mind and emotion. I've kind of recognized that I don't necessarily need life. Not in this body, not with this mind. I'm not really afraid of death anymore. Though fear may arise from time to time, it feels like it would be nice to kind of just dissolve into the nothingness that exists between all atoms, all molecules. There's a lot of space that exists within these physical forms. So what most of it is just space, and the rest of it is just bound up energy. Once again, that may be a belief. I don't know this to be true, but I do think it makes some sense. So much of what we see is actually empty space. Things can travel through that space, and we call that stuff energy. As far as I understand, quantum physicists have discovered, and a long time ago at that the foundations of this reality are just energy, vibration, waves, in crazy different patterns, having some key elemental behaviors that all energy and vibration follows, and that it can present itself in what we see as light, or simply sound, or other sensations, but it's all essentially the same thing. Some of you may think, well, duh, tell me something I don't know. Well, I guess what I'm saying is I don't know if that's actually true or not. It's something I've heard. It's something I based a lot of belief in. But once again, I'm trying to clear out my beliefs and really see things as they are, without being obscured by patterns of thought that seem to form the experiences that I'm having through a certain perspective or filter. Anyhow, I was about to get off this video, say goodnight, and I started rambling again. So thank you for listening. I hope you took this journey with me in an interesting way, that you enjoyed it in some fashion, that it stimulated your mind, your emotions, that it helped you to gain some insight into what goes on in the mind, in the body, in the emotions of somebody dealing with schizophrenia. In some ways, I'm a pretty normal person. In other ways, I'm very far from it. I guess that's all a matter of perspective, and once again, I'm trying to get to that most fundamental of perspectives. That perspective that we used to have before we had all sorts of programming running through us, all sorts of patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior that were gained and acquired through the life experience. I've oftentimes felt like I'm just kind of bound up inside. There are too many knots. I'm trying to free myself from those knots. On that note, thank you for watching, and I will be back soon. Have a good night, or day, or whatever it is that you're experiencing right now. Thank you.